Welcome back to the Winning Brief Soundbites. I'm Mabel. This episode marks the start of part 2 in our series on Belgium's new criminal code. In part 1, we covered the reform itself, the new structure, the sentencing philosophy, and how companies are treated as defendants. Now, in part 2, we turn to the new offenses, and we begin with the big one. Belgium has become one of the first countries in the world to make ecocide a crime. By the end of this episode, you'll understand what ecocide means under Belgian law, where it applies, and you'll practice phrases you can use when discussing environmental criminal liability. When the Belgian Parliament approved the new criminal code on the 22nd of February 2024, it did something no other EU member state had done before. It formally recognized ecocide as a criminal offense, and it went further. It classified ecocide as an international crime alongside war crimes, genocide, and crimes against humanity. So, what exactly is ecocide under Belgian law? The definition in the code is dense. So, let's break it down. There are 4 elements. First, the act must be intentional, not accidental. Second, it must be unlawful, a violation of federal law or binding international law. Third, it must cause damage to the environment that is serious, widespread, and long-term. All 3. And fourth, the person or company must have known that their actions would cause that kind of damage. That knowledge requirement is the highest bar for prosecutors to clear. Ecocide sits at level 6 on the 8-level scale. For individuals, that means up to 20 years in prison. For companies, fines of up to 1.6 million euros, plus accessory penalties such as confiscation, a business activity ban, or even dissolution. Now, here is the part that surprises people. Despite the ambition, the scope is narrow. Due to Belgium's constitutional division of powers, environmental matters are largely handled by the regions, Flanders, Wallonia, and Brussels. Federal jurisdiction is limited. In practice, ecocide under the new code currently applies in 3 scenarios: damage from ionizing radiation or nuclear waste, damage to the North Sea, and environmental harm committed outside Belgium by Belgian nationals or entities. Belgium introduced one of the most progressive environmental crimes in the world and then handed most of the enforcement power to regional governments who have not yet followed suit. Why does this matter for your practice? First, even with its limited federal scope, this is a signal offense. Belgium is the first EU member state to put ecocide into its criminal code. Clients operating in sectors with significant environmental impact, energy, chemicals, heavy industry, should be aware of the direction this is heading, not just where the law stands today. And remember that knowledge requirement. For companies, it can be inferred from the conduct of leadership, internal policies, and even corporate culture. If your client's compliance framework has gaps, those gaps could become evidence. Second, a note on translation. If you read English language summaries of this provision, you'll see the word deliberately. Be careful. In criminal law, deliberately is colloquial. The correct terms are intentionally or knowingly, because those map onto the mens rea element that prosecution must prove. The Belgian definition actually contains a double mens rea threshold. The act itself must be intentional, and the offender must have known it would cause the damage. That distinction matters, and the word deliberately flattens it. Use intentionally when you discuss this with clients. And third, keep an eye on the EU timeline. Member states have until May 2026 to transpose the new EU Environmental Crime Directive, which includes a qualified offence comparable to ecocide. Belgium's regions will likely need to act, and when they do, the scope of this crime will expand significantly. Now let's practice some of the phrases from today's episode. 1. It classified ecocide as an international crime. Classified as is how you describe the formal legal categorization of an offense. It signals a conscious policy choice by the legislature. 2. 3 conditions must all be met. Must all be met is precise and clear. Use it when you need to signal that every element is required, not just 1 or 2. 3. Despite the ambition, the scope is narrow. This contrast, ambition versus scope, is a powerful structure in legal analysis. It signals a gap between what the law intends and what it actually covers. 4. Those gaps could become evidence. Short and direct. This is the kind of sentence that gets a boardroom's attention. It connects compliance failures to legal exposure in 5 words. 5. The scope of this crime will expand significantly. Expand significantly signals major change ahead. Use it when advising clients to prepare now rather than react later. Time to practice. Repeat after me. It classified ecocide as an international crime. 3 conditions must all be met. Despite the ambition, the scope is narrow. Those gaps could become evidence. The scope of this crime will expand significantly. Great job! In episode 5, we look at the white-collar reboot, how the new code reshapes fraud, money laundering, and the rules on criminal attempts. Keep learning and practicing with the Winning Brief Soundbites. Environmental criminal liability is no longer theoretical. If your team advises clients in high-impact sectors, the English they use to explain that risk needs to be precise. That is what I help with. You can learn more about what I do at thewinningbrief.eu.